right around 45% of US renters don't have renter's insurance. Now, one, that's a huge gap. The bigger gap is that 75% of US landlords actually require that to be the fact. One of the things that makes us unique is having that claims team and that one quarterback right here in the Columbus office. A lot of our competitors are outsourcing claims to different TPAs. So we've got some pretty solid systems on how we're not only opening mail, sorting that mail, uploading it into our system, and using technology where it's appropriate to really sort and match policies with residents within our system. Managing policies is one of the biggest things, and if you have a portfolio of 500 units, that could be 500 policies that are coming in at any given point. Started there selling SEO websites to independent agents, primarily through the Nationwide Insurance independent channel and their captive exclusive channel, as they were transitioning a lot of those captive agents over to independent agents.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Power Producers Podcast, where we are refining and redefining the sales game. And today, we are doing what we do, bringing you a value add that you can use to enhance your book of business, have better opportunity to displace incumbents if you deal with HAB and real estate schedules, and ultimately make a difference for your prospects and clients. And our guest is Mr. Steve Bruder from Foxen. You may or may not have heard of them, but you will know about them very well by the time we're done. I know Steve and his wife. I know his wife actually better than him, just because we talk, back and forth all the time, being in the insurance industry. And ironically, as soon as we're done recording this, I'm headed to the airport to fly up to Columbus to hang with them this weekend and go see the Ohio State game tomorrow, and then subsequently speak at IACon for the Ohio Insurance Agents Conference. So looking forward to that. But I wanted to have Steve come on because a few months back, my good friend, and many of you may know him, Scott Howell, had some medical things arise and was unable to attend a conference for real estate investors that just so happened to be over in Orlando. And his right-hand guy, Clinton Orr, was going to be there, and they wanted to get content footage. And so it's funny, his wife called, or Kim Howell messaged me and said, listen, Scott's in rough shape. He's in the hospital and his appendix had ruptured. I don't know if that's HIPAA compliant or not, but I'll let you have that much information. Do you know someone who could go over, we could hire to go over and film and get content of Clint while he's talking at this thing? And I'm like, well, why don't I just go? I said, I've got all the equipment and everything. I'll just drive over there. It's 45 minutes to an hour away. And like, no, we're not asking you to. I was like, no. You've already told me what the problem is. That's the solution. Grayson and I'll drive over there, and we'll hang with Clint at the booth and help him field traffic. And as far as anybody knows, I'm a representative of I Protect Insurance at that point. They don't know me. And so we did. And as we were over there, I was talking with Clinton specifically about how they integrate with Foxen, and learned a lot about how they're using it in their agency, and specifically as a way to differentiate themselves against other habitational players. So I decided I needed to get Steve on the podcast so that everybody could hear what they're doing. And I want to be clear, Steve is going to talk about this, about who their ideal prospect is and who this is going to work the best for. I want to make sure you listen to that part of it, because this is not going to be a product that's going to be for everybody. And it's not something you're going to ultimately be successful with if you write an apartment complex. We're looking for those of you who are out writing habitational, good-sized schedules that are really looking for something that's going to differentiate and also have the ability to augment some revenue. So with that being said, welcome, my man. What's going on?
Yeah, no, really excited to be here, and excited to speak and be able to connect with everybody. Been a long time listener, and just looking forward to the conversation.
So before we get cranked up, why don't you sort of give everybody the background story on who Steve is and how you got to where you're at with Foxen? Because I do know like you've got a little bit of a background of doing other things. I think sometimes inside the peripheral to the insurance industry and tech. So just sort of give us the 10,000-foot overview.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got my start in the insurance industry on the software sales side, selling independent agents, websites, SEO, marketing packages. And it's kind of funny. So my first day technically in the insurance industry at a company called Smart Harbor in the shipyard where we were doing that was actually Kat Turnus's first day as well. So Kat and I started on the same exact day back in, I think it was 2016. We kind of learned the insurance industry, learned sales. Both started as BDRs, and Kat has had a skyrocket of a career so far. So excited to hang out with her and have her as a really close friend. But yeah, started there selling SEO websites to independent agents, primarily through the nationwide insurance independent channel and their captive exclusive channel, as they were transitioning a lot of those captive agents over to independent agents. So got to witness that firsthand and see some of the issues that caused in the background. And worked my way up to selling those websites. And then after about 3.5 years, saw a lot of my colleagues that I've really enjoyed working with start to take outside careers. There were only a couple of us left from that original core group still there. It was great, but I saw the writing on the wall. For me personally, it was my time to take that next step in my career. So it was springtime, I want to say, of 2019, to the point where I ended up jumping over to a dental insurance carrier here to Columbus, Ohio, called Beam Dental. They are now Beam Benefits to really encompass all that they do, from dental, vision, all the way to accident, critical illness, and hospital indemnity, really being the experts in the ancillary benefit space. When I was over there close to 4 years, I did everything from sales leadership, where we scaled my sales team specifically from 6 people to 12 direct reports. And then I saw this gap in our, at the time, 2-man partnerships team and figured, hey, that seems very interesting. Let me go see what that's all about. So I jumped over to the partnerships team, took on our general agent partnerships, our broker partnerships, PEO sales, health plan, and associations, and really just tried to figure out what was working, why it was working, and then go out and replicate it with other partners out in the marketplace. Did that really well to the point where we were able to hire some people from some of the legacy carriers that we're all probably familiar with from our health and medical benefits, and did that for close to 4 years. And as the startup salesman in me started getting the itch, I wanted to make the jump over to Foxen, do it all over again. And it just happened to be that Foxen was in the exact same building as Beam at the
Yeah.
time. So it was a little bit awkward, where my commute went from getting off on the fourth floor to now getting off on the sixth floor. Um, we now had took over a larger space, so that's no longer the issue. Still downtown Columbus, but more in the Arena District, and coming up on 2 years being over here now. So yeah, that's kind of the evolution of my story. And I love trying to build distribution channels, especially with insurance agents and brokers. So that's kind of what led us here today.
So Foxen, if you just say it, no clue what they do, right? Like nobody really would understand from the name. So why don't you sort of lay it out for everybody listening? Well, screw it. We don't need to do an elevator pitch. Just tell them what you guys do, man.
Yeah. So we got started really solving one problem. And there's a statistic that, to me, being a licensed insurance professional, is a little bit startling, in the fact that right around 45% of U.S. renters don't have renters insurance. Now, one, that's a huge gap. The bigger gap is that 75% of U.S. landlords actually require that to be the fact. So the gap there of landlords requiring it and then residents just not having it leaves a pretty big exposure for those owner and operators, whether it's a 500 unit owner with a couple of their friends that they spun up 10 years ago, or if it's a 10,000 unit property management company. It's a problem that we're solving, and it was unfortunate that our founders and CEO, they were a very large owner operator themselves, and they were solving a problem that happened at one of their properties where a resident turned in a policy to collect their keys. They turned around, canceled that policy. The site staff thought they were doing everything correct. Unfortunately, there was a claim at that unit, burned the back half of the building down, and when they went to collect on that renter's policy, it was no longer in force. So long story short, they had to go out of pocket to hit the deductible, get the claims submitted, and then the apartment back in a livable condition. And they were trying to solve for that. They never wanted that to happen again. So they went out to the market to see if any solutions really solved for that gap in compliance and eliminated the compliance gaps and site level involvement. Thankfully for us, unfortunate for them at the time, that no one really did it and did it well and kept the property manager's site level teams in mind. And that's where we come into play. They created Foxen specifically for that portfolio. Again, it was a great problem. It wasn't solving a unique issue to them, and we incorporated it in 2018 and have been scaling it ever since.
So, what does this mean if I'm a property and casualty agent? Because what you just told me tells me that you solve a problem for the actual person, property management, or who owns the property or whatever else. But what why would this be important to me if I'm a producer out there who's working with people who have HAB accounts?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we have seen over the last, 2 to 3 years is a lot of agents using our product or products like ours to get a foot in the door with either an account that they lost 3 to 4 years ago or an account that they've been trying to go after for years. And when you implement our program at a ownership group at a property management company, not only is that property management company going to eliminate that compliance gap that exists in the renter's insurance program, that customer is also going to be able to generate some revenue from it as well. So typically we're seeing right around a $4 revenue share per unit that's enrolled in our coverage. So they're able to pretty quickly generate ancillary income for their customers and for their prospects. And they're going to be able to use that to help offset and soften any of those renewal discussions. But then also for the agents, they're able to use this, again, not only as a door opener to get a shot at that renewal or to make that customer that they already have just a little bit more stickier. They're also going to be able to get some pretty solid revenue from our program too. So obviously working through the agent and producer channel, we want to make sure we're compensating as such as well. So our agents are going to be able to earn some pretty reliable and consistent revenue when they're implementing us at their 1,000 unit portfolio customer or one of their prospects that's going to be a similar size.
So if I'm a P&C producer, how do I know that Foxen's a fit? What am I listening for when I go out and I meet with people?
Yeah. So generally what we tell our producers, and if you're prospecting into a new account, you can approach it around, are you using anyone for your renter's insurance compliance? How are you managing those policies? Managing policies is one of the biggest things. And if you have a portfolio of 500 units, that could be 500 policies that are coming in at any given point. It's really time consuming. Things slip through the cracks. And unfortunately, property managers are not insurance experts. So they don't do this every day. We want to make sure that we are giving them time to do what they do best, lease up apartment communities, run the overall community, and just make sure that their residents are happy from that perspective. And then Foxen's going to manage all of the compliance for those policies. We actually just went through our student turn where we're getting tens of thousands of policies on a weekly basis, cancellations, reinstatements, renewals. We're uploading that into our system. Our customer teams on the other side of the building are reaching out to residents with either policies that are in danger of canceling, and then educating them and letting them know that, David, if your policy is going to be canceling at the end of October, you have this timeline to get that policy in good standing. All you have to do is update that policy, add Foxen as the additional interest. That way we can do our monitoring and compliance. And if they don't do anything at the end of the month, effective November 1st, everything's okay. You're still going to have the Foxen waiver program where you're essentially waiving your liability to the landlord to have that property coverage. They can opt out at any point just by simply turning in an updated policy, but it's giving them that base level protection. So first question, ask how they're managing compliance. If they're using a property management software, are they potentially using that software for their in-house solution as well? Have they had any uncovered claims that should have been covered through that renter's insurance policy that came from resident negligence? Those are the type of questions that really get the conversation going. And then, we've got a handful of questions that they can ask following that in regards to what their program absorption rates are, what their revenue share looks like, how they're managing compliance reports, things like that.
So your most successful agents, how have you seen that they're able to go out and approach this that makes them different in the marketplace than somebody who's just going out and slinging insurance policies?
Yeah, so I would say the ones that are doing this really well, they're not waiting for renewal. So a lot of what we're doing is trying to help our agents get ahead of this, because when we look at our customers that we are onboarding on a daily and weekly basis, I would say almost every single one had a solution in place at some level. It could be a solution that's through their software. It could be one of our direct competitors that's only focused on this, but just helping them start that conversation earlier. That way, when it gets to renewal cycle, you're not only having a couple minutes because, the commercial policy is always going to be priority. I ran into the same thing on the ancillary benefit side. Medical insurance was always going to take priority. Dental and vision, yes, it's extremely important, but you're only going to get a couple minutes. So that same thing kind of matters here, and just trying to position it much earlier in that sales cycle. That way, when that renewal does come around, they're already implemented, they're already having a high absorption, and now you can directly point to this is the revenue that you generated from Foxen over the last 2-3 months. And then they can start kind of using that and planning how they're going to deploy that revenue.
So talk about like claims time. How does that work? Let's say that somebody has Foxen, is a partner in the properties that they're insuring, and the property management team is executing to perfection, and all of a sudden a claim comes. What does that look like for the renter? What does it look like for the property owner / property manager?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And it's one of the things that we try to pride ourselves on. Our claims guy, I think his office is right on the other side of this wall. One of the things that makes us unique is having that claims team and that one quarterback right here in the Columbus office. A lot of our competitors are outsourcing claims to different TPAs. We do use on-site teams where it's necessary, but most of our claims are our covered claims are either going to come from fire, water, smoke, explosion, or sudden discharge or overflow from either bathtubs, toilets. sinks, things like that. So our claims are pretty straightforward, again, covering against tenant negligence. We do have some enhanced perils as well, but those are going to be, I would say, 8 to 9 out of 10 of our customers have that standard policy. We ask our residents and the property managers to fill out a one-page claim form and an incident form, just kind of walking through what happened at the property, and then just submitting that to us. We are launching our digital claims experience, which will just be a very seamless workflow where residents and the property management company is just going to be able to go onto a secured portal, type up what their specific claim happened, and then submit it that way, and it will auto go into our queue. But yeah, our claims team's right here in Columbus, Ohio, and then if there is, a fire claim or a pretty bad water claim that we need to send an on-site team, we do have third parties that we partner with to make sure that we can get those teams on site in a pretty timely manner.
Could you have an example of a time where you saved the property manager's bacon because they used you? Because all of a sudden, they had these issues in the past. You brought up the example that I would have thought of where somebody comes in, they buy up. It's no different than contractors buying a GL policy long enough to go get on a job or get their check and then having it cancel for non-pay or canceling it right after. And you don't know because you can't check it in most cases in real time. So I imagine that was a huge gap, and it seems like you guys fill it. Do you have a claim story that you can share?
Yeah, there's a lot of claim stories. I think I just looked at one yesterday where I was doing a report for one of my brokers and just looking at what the claims that were submitted. I think I saw a pressure cooker explode and cause damage, but a couple ones that are more common and relatable. We had a claim where a resident was doing some laundry and they had a sweater that they were hanging up, and they went to hang it up on the ceiling and they hung it right on the sprinkler. That caused the sprinkler to break, caused water damage from that. And that resident,
Not just a little.
yeah. And so thankfully that resident had our program, and that water damage ended up being covered. It wasn't a full limit claim, but yeah, it caused a pretty good amount of water damage there. So that one was covered. We had another one where the most common one is people come home, put a pizza in the oven, and that oven ended up catching on fire. So kitchen fires are fairly common from the fire claims. We've also had a few where someone was smoking a cigarette in their lazy boy, dropped the cigarette, caused a fire that way. So those are some of the common ones that we do see from a resident negligent perspective.
So you mentioned policy limits. Like what do typical limits on one of these look like?
Yeah. So our typical limits are going to be 100,000 in liability coverage. And generally, we try to match, we need to at least match that minimum of the lease requirement. So I would say 9 out of 10 of our customers, their leases require 100,000 in that liability coverage. Some of the properties that are in more of a downtown high-rise scenario might have 200, 300,000 in coverage. Anytime we're going above that 100,000, we just custom underwrite those, and we've got a 20 to 30 questionnaire that we do ask, just related to what type of property it is, liability limits, things like that. But I would say the standard right down the middle is going to be that 100,000 in liability coverage, and then depending on the state, we have the ability to layer in some personal contents and displacement costs. There are some states that are a little bit trickier where the Department of Insurance views including personal contents in a tenant liability policy just too close to a traditional renter's insurance policy. And we want to make sure that we're not crossing the lines and getting our customers in a bad position. but also we want to make sure that we are doing right by the residents who ultimately are our end customer, that they just know exactly what our policy is, what it covers, and then more importantly, what it's not. It's not going to be a traditional renter's insurance policy. However, we do have the ability to offer that. We partner with Travelers and one of their companies, Insure a Match, where if a resident wants that enhanced coverage, they can go through a digital underwriting experience, quote and bind, and that policy automatically gets put into our system through that. Um, so yeah, they have the option. Option one is they don't do anything. They're going to be covered from day one with our base level liability policy. If they want enhanced coverage through us, they can go through Travelers and get a policy there, custom policy limits specific to what their underwriting needs are. And then the third option, they go out to the market. They get an insurance policy through either an independent agent or one of the carriers that's spending millions of dollars on direct advertising. All that we ask is Foxen's address gets added to that policy so we can monitor it from an ongoing basis.
And what's that compliance piece look like for you guys? I mean, that seems like a lot of stuff you have to stay on top of.
Yeah, it is. So I think I mentioned it earlier, but we just went through our student turn. So our team is getting anywhere from 10 to 20 trays of mail on a daily basis. So we've got some pretty solid systems on how we're not only opening mail, sorting that mail, uploading it into our system, and using technology where it's appropriate to really sort and match policies with residents within our system. So within, I would say, 24 to 36 hours of getting that piece of mail, that's uploaded into our system. And then if it's a policy that was canceled, our team is reaching out to the residents and making sure that that resident is placed into the waiver program. And again, that's one of the biggest things that we do see our customers rave about is we handle all of the compliance and monitoring, billing and charge management as well. So if I had a policy canceled, let's call it October 22nd, that was the cancellation date, I'd be placed into the waiver program. A Foxen person on our customer team would send over a $14 charge to my resident ledger. I would pay that with my rent. And then from there, again, I can opt out and just update that policy at any given point. That $14 charge would then be removed.
What have we missed, man? I mean, I feel like you've laid it all out to pretty good detail so far. What question have I not asked you that you want to answer?
I think we hit a lot. I would say, if anybody thinks they have a customer, or more importantly, a prospect, definitely feel free to reach out. We're seeing a lot of agents really trying to build that very industry specific niche. And this is a great way that you can get a foot in the door, build some trust, and earn that shot at the policy from the P&C standpoint at renewal by adding some value from not only the renter's insurance compliance program, but we also have rent reporting solutions that we don't have to go in here, but that is probably going to be a product that you start hearing more about, especially as some of the states are now requiring landlords to actually report or actually offer the ability to report on-time payments. California just passed a bill, so it's definitely taken off in California, and as California takes new risks and new standpoints on certain policies, typically we see that spreading nationwide as well.
How do they get a hold of you, my man?
Yeah, so you can reach out. I'm on LinkedIn, Steve Bruder. Of course, I'm married to the Beyonce of insurance, Ashley Fitzsimmons. So if you know Ashley, you know me then. My email is also sbruder@foxen.com. So you can find me on any three of those ways.
That's awesome. Well, listen, I don't think we need to beat a dead horse. You've got a great opportunity for people out there right now, and I've got a flight to catch so I can actually come hang out with you guys, which is far more important than recording a podcast. But listen, people, if you're haven't figured this out yet, we're in the hardest market that we've been in a long time, and anything you can use to differentiate yourself at the point of sale is extremely important right now. And it's not even just the fact that you're differentiating yourself at the point of sale. Everybody's shopping. Everybody's looking for a way to cut cost. And you know as well as I do, there's only so much you can do to drop premium, especially with, rates constantly going up. So instead of focusing on trying to cut premium to a bone, which you really don't have any control over, we really need to be looking at some of the risk management angles we can take on some of these risks. And retained losses, whether or not, active, meaning uncovered claims as a result of not having a process and program in place, are not going to help somebody who's already struggling with what they're paying for insurance, number one. And number two, sometimes you just got to help people. You got to lead them to what they need without them knowing. And that's kind of our job in what we do. We have a duty to offer. And I think this is a great way to cover what could be a massive gap for some of your property, your real estate investors and property management companies that handle these things. And you can show them a way that's going to allow them to monetize to enough of a degree that it'll help relieve a little bit of the pain on what they're paying out. So it's a win all the way around if you allow it to be. You just have to be in a position to know what to listen for, know what to ask, and then actually execute and ask that question. Because I know Steve's going to be around ready to help you. He's already helping plenty of other people that I know, and they're winning every day as a result. So I would highly encourage you, if you're in that space, and you've not implemented a solution like this, or maybe if you have, it's probably not as good as what Foxen is doing, it's worth an exploratory call at a bare minimum. But if you're going to call him, show up with a prospect. He always likes that more anyhow, if you've got an opportunity on the table. So, Steve, I appreciate you jumping on, man. Thanks for spending some time talking, and look forward to hearing people come back and tell me how many times they've been able to win as a result of hearing this podcast.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate the time.
All right, my man. We'll catch you soon. Have a great weekend, and I will see you tomorrow morning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bye, man.
Take
Later.
care.